call on the minority leader to second. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished Honorable. The minority leader, please.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I second the motion moved by the majority leader. Thank you.
If you're in support of the motion, say aye. Aye. And if you're against, say no. The ayes have it. I have the honor and privilege to invite to the podium of the Nigerian Youth Parliament the ambassador of the Republic of Germany to Nigeria to welcome us and encourage us. And I noticed there was nobody to say hi, and he was looking for that person that of going to Germany. All right, Your Excellency.
Honorable Speaker.
Up to you, please, Your Excellency. I would like to quickly announce that for those that have handles, please, the official Twitter handle of the Nigerian Youth Parliament is at the NYP official, because there are a lot of youth joining this conversation presently. And on Instagram, we have NGR Youth Parliament. On Facebook, we have NG Youth Parliament. And on YouTube, which we are on live now, is the Nigerian Youth Parliament. So we have several people watching us from all over the world presently. So, Your Excellency, sorry to interrupt you.
No, thank you. Now, Parliament is certainly one of the best mechanisms to bring this kind of representation and participation about. I think there are 2 points I would like to make. First point is that successful economies, I mean in all parts of the world, harness the potential and the resourcefulness of all their productive segments. First and foremost, the young population, which, as history and studies have shown, is, in terms of energy, resilience, skillfulness, the most promising, most forward-looking part of the population. So these are qualities developing countries like Nigeria need to tap into for development and economic prosperity. Secondly, and I think even more importantly for democracy, when we talk about inclusive government for democratic development, we need to involve all of the critical stakeholders. And if 60% of the population are, as in Nigeria, young people, then they must actually have a say in the way their society is governed and ruled and run, in how resources are being used, in how political debate about the future of the country is being shaped. I can only say from my experience here in Nigeria that I sense there is a great appetite of young people in Nigeria to get involved in politics, despite the occasional argument that one sometimes hears that political engagement is not interesting to young people. Politicians here often used to think, I mean, experienced and seasoned politicians used to think young people are too inexperienced or too adventurous to engulfed in I don't know what fashion and entertainment, music. But from my point of view, from my experience here, that is absolutely not the case. There is a huge interest and a huge appetite amongst young people to be engaged and to run for office. I know that's not easy. Young people are structurally disadvantaged, although, as we have seen, first steps to remedy that by, for instance, lowering the minimum age for the office of the president and Senate member as well as the MP, as an MP in the House, are being discussed as part of the constitutional package currently under consideration. But certainly there are other disadvantage, not least economic disadvantage. We all know running for office in Nigeria is extremely expensive, and most young people, of course, simply do not have the means to compete in this rather difficult environment. But and also, I don't think that political parties, the existing political parties in Nigeria, do overly encourage young people to engage and build their capacity. But this is all the more reason for the Youth Parliament to make the stand of young people in Nigeria and on the major issues of the day, and that is what I understand you do, and to advocate for a stronger inclusion of young Nigerians in the political debate. This is an indispensable process for a stable and flourishing democracy, and I'm very happy that the Youth Parliament is taking on that task. So I would like to express my full support for the undertaking here. I'm very impressed by the proceedings. I wish you a very good session and good proceedings and good success. And as Mr. Putin said, go for it. I think it's worthwhile. You are the future of this great, great country, and you should take the opportunity to shape it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we are happy to have you. We're so encouraged, you are inspired with what you've told us. You have commended the appetite of an average Nigerian young man to get involved in the political process and governance process. And at the same time, you have highlighted some, objectively, without prejudice, some of the disadvantages of running an election or getting involved in Nigeria, which we know is highly monetized. And the Nigerian Youth Parliament, I know we're doing something to ensure that this is strictly, and adequately handled. And you emphasize the need for the building of capacities, and this is where we're going to call on all other developmental partners, embassies, and that the Nigerian youth capacities need to be built for this greater responsibility that will be saddled on them in the very recent time, as in no distant time, so to say, because we know soon there will be influx of Nigerian youth into governance, and we want them to be better, we want them to have more optimal performance when they are in government. So that will be, and you have called on us, you've challenged the Youth Parliament. I believe every one of us have heard, distinguished honorable members. We have been challenged to take up the responsibility of being what we are called to do, to be the active voice, to start to always speak on behalf of the Nigerian youth, and to always stand for what we believe, what our generation needs, and to always stand for the development of the country. So thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we still want you around so that you can witness some of our deliberations as this is going to come up. The Majority Leader, could you please go to the next?
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, I want to use this medium to also thank the ambassador. That was a nice presentation. We are delighted and honored to have you in our midst. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I move that we suspend our rules to accommodate the presentation of His Excellency, the Russian ambassador, the representative of the Russian ambassador, to make his presentation. I call on the minority leader to second. Thank you.
The minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, I hereby second the motion moved by the majority leader. Thank you.
So if you're in support of the motion for us to suspend our house rules to accommodate the representative of the Russian ambassador to Nigeria, will you please say aye? Aye. And if you are against, say no. No. The ayes have it. So I use this medium to invite to the podium of the Nigerian Youth Parliament the representative of the Russian ambassador. And I noticed that we have not been recording so news when it comes to the ambassadors. Why? Minority party. You are in total support. Total support. Full support. All right. Okay. Thank you. Your Excellency.
Okay. Honorable Speaker, honorable members of the Youth Parliament, please allow me to assure everybody present in this hall, in this room, of the highest consideration on behalf of His Excellency, Ambassador of the Russian Federation and the Russian Federation in general. So throughout the history, Russia and Nigeria have been enjoying really friendly relations. And with the time, we have been enhancing and promoting cooperation in various fields. One of these fields being youth politics. Over half a century, Russia has promoted capacity building of Nigerian youngsters. Now, there are more than 6,000 of alumni of Russian and Soviet universities in Russia, and over 2,000 of them belong to the Alumni Association Sputnik. And the members of this association keeps growing, the number of members keeps growing, as every year Russia provides ever-increasing number of scholarships for Nigerian youngsters. After graduation, these passionate Nigerian citizens, they join the association and contribute to the development of their country. So this year, Russian Embassy nominated over 100 of Nigerian students in 35 faculties to study in Russia. So these faculties vary from medicine, mathematics, physics, oil and gas.
Hello,
and
sorry to interrupt you, Your Excellency, just 1 minute. Please, we will not tolerate movements around the Parliament. We've said it earlier. Please, if you're here to take pictures, you need to wait after the presentations or something. And when you're moving around, please bow before the mace when doing that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so like I said, this year we nominated over 100 of Nigerian youngsters, aspirants to universities to study in Russia on the basis of scholarship. And this number keeps growing from year to year. Every time it's became bigger. 2017 has seen an increase in bilateral contacts on the highest level, on the high level. So in May, His Excellency Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Geoffrey Onyema, visited Russia and met with his Russian colleague, Sergei Lavrov. Recently, Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Bukola Saraki, took part in the Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union in Moscow, where a meeting with the chairperson of the Federation Council of the Russian Federation, Valentina Matvienko, took place. So in October, Russian city of Sochi and several other cities hosted 19th World Festival of Youth and Students, in which Nigerian delegation took part. This global event allowed passionate youngsters from all over the world to convene in one place and interact, discuss, and agree on an immense number of issues that will define our future. So 8 days, 3 cities, and over 35,000 of participants from all over the world established contacts, shared views, and their approaches to issues of global relevance during countless seminars, fairs, and entertaining events. So Russia has always been supporting and supportive of promotion of cooperation in various fields of mutual interest. One of these fields being the youth politics. And Russia will continue to promote bilateral cooperation. Having said all this, we sincerely wish you to pass an efficient, inclusive, successful youth policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you once again for the opportunity, to be at Sochi. And lessons gained from this will be communicated to the world henceforth, and we want to really enjoy your support for capacity building of Nigerian youth in various aspects, not only leadership, but in terms of technological developments too. And want to appreciate you for the scholarship scheme. And like Oliver Twist, we want to please plead with you that you improve on that number. We know it's about 100, but we know Russia can do better by increasing it to maybe 200 or 300 developed. So thank you very much. And we hope that you can still stay around to watch some of our proceedings, because we are going into a very, very important part of the proceedings now. Just some few minutes to see how we do the review or the National Youth Policy Review too, so that at least you can have a feel of what the proposed draft will be like. Thank you very much. The Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I move that we suspend our rules to accommodate presentation by Professor Alfred Adoke, Lead Consultant, National Youth Policy Review. I call on the Minority Leader to second. Thank you.
The Minority Leader, please.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, I so second.
House, if you are in support of that motion, say aye. Aye. And if you are against, say no. The ayes have it. I have the Parliament's honor to invite to the podium the lead consultant in the National Youth Policy Review, Professor Alfred Adegoke. Please, you may step to the podium. We don't clap here. Thank you.
Sir. Okay. Can I put my laptop in?
He has been involved in the Youth Policy Review from 2013 to now, and he's going to give us an overview. And from there, although our inputs have been taken at the level of Kaduna, and that was when we appreciated the inputs of some of our colleagues that represented us, Honorable Umar, Honorable Jinodo Yahweh, and also in Abuja, we had Honorable Adesoya John Julius and my humble self, and Honorable Neighbor Collins, yes, sorry, and we were there. But I think he believes that the Nigerian Youth Parliament's position must be clear and it must be taken on this newly drafted policy. So, sir, he will be presenting to us today the final draft, an overview of the final draft, then we can make an input. I'm sure our colleagues here have the draft with them, so you can just read along, and then we ask questions when he's done, and we make our resolutions to him. Thank you very much.
So you pull the seats, this the PowerPoint. Listen. Listen. No. Well, where's consultation? Where are the PowerPoints you have? Okay. Okay. No. 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 No.
It's finished now, just.
It's there. Can you hit the PowerPoint? Open. Can you open what is there?
There's nothing. Nothing good. Let me check it again.
This is hair. It's there. This is. Yeah, this is Kingston. This is.
The minority leader,
Youth policy.
is he around?
Can we?
Okay.
Reports.
These are one of
Can
our-
I? It's here.
Okay.
The minority leader, please approach the bench, please. Thank you.
This is why I wanted this done before.
Distinguished colleagues, while they are fixing the PowerPoint presentation, I think it is appropriate that we look into documents that was distributed to us yesterday and ensure that at least we have a clear understanding of
This is it.
what the prof is about to present.
I'd like a bit.
We are very sure that we have gone through this, but we need to really go through the study it and give our own position on this. Thank you very much.
Okay, is there
National Youth Policy.
okay, let me close it, let me return.
I've just opened this now. Wait. That was why I wanted us to get this thing done on time. Okay, take it out now.
Okay.
Does anybody have another flash? Okay, let's open
Okay, I'm
it.
going to bring another flash.
Okay, open. Can you type National Youth Policy there? Maybe it will. Yeah, that's it. It's brought it out. Okay, that's it. That's it. I think they're ready. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
You can use
I can use this to. Okay, good. Good. That's right. Is it projected? Okay. The Honorable Speaker of the House, principal officers of the House, Your Excellencies, the Ambassador of Germany and Russia, the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, distinguished parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure this morning to just give you an overview of the current national policy that we're working on. The current policy is expired, as it were, long overdue, and we started this process of reviewing the current policy, and I'm just going to take you quickly through the high points. It's been a long process. The last stakeholders meeting that we had in Abuja here, the Speaker of the House was there, but I think this is an excellent opportunity to get your input into the policy and for you to kind of have a bird's eye view of the policy. So I'm just going to quickly run through it. I think this is very important, and I think the policy is supposed to be youth-centered and youth-driven. So when the Speaker of the House asked me to come, I thought it's a wonderful opportunity to give you an opportunity to see what this policy is all about, and for you to also have your input. Even though we've had inputs from the Speaker, and members of the officials of the House in the previous meeting. Basically, I'm going to take you through the process. How did we come to this point? The process of the review itself. And then I will just highlight some principles in developing the policy, the draft policy that we have. And then I will give you a peep into the content of the policy itself. I sent a copy of the draft to the Speaker, and I'm sure the principal officers and some of you may have copies already. So we're just going to do that very quickly. The process. This process actually began in 2013. It's been a long-drawn process. It shouldn't have taken that long. But because of certain challenges of funding, budget issues, and so on and so forth, the policy review have dragged from 2013 up until this present moment. But we're hopeful that we're at the very last stage of the process right now, and we're hopeful that by December, the process will be concluded and the policy can take effect from 2018. We actually had the first consultative meeting in 2013, bringing young people together, youth groups together from different parts of the country to look at the old policy and to see what can we do differently, what can we add, what are the new issues, what are the emerging issues, what are the new problems that we need to capture in a new policy. We had another second consultative meeting, again bringing the youths together in 2014. Again, all youth groups, youth organization came together, and there was a lot of brainstorming because we wanted to hear from the stakeholders themselves, because this is not something that somebody will sit in Abuja and just come up with a policy. We wanted the youths themselves to have input in the process of the review. Then in 2016, we had another very huge consultative meeting in 2016 in Abuja. My first meeting was with the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports, the staff, because that was very important. They are supposed to be the ones who drive the policy. And I had a meeting with the staff, and I wanted to know what they felt about the policy that has just expired and what they wanted in the new policy. So we harvested input from the ministry themselves, and that was in 2016. We also had a 2-day stakeholders policy development meeting, September 28 to 29, 2016 in Abuja. And we had youth groups from all over the country. We had NGOs, youth NGOs. We had all stakeholders. We had the development partners in attendance. We had all the youth groups in attendance in this meeting, and the purpose again was to harvest the input that they would like to see in the new policy. It was after that we came up with a draft. Two of us, I am the lead consultant. There's one other, Professor Fatusi. He's a professor of social medicine and has been working with young people from Obafemi Awolowo University. We were able to work on the draft, and we came up with a draft. And that draft was then presented into another set of consultative meetings, one for the northern region and the other one for the southern region. The northern region was done in Kaduna, and we had lots of youth groups coming in, and we had input. We presented the draft that we were able to come up with, having harvested inputs from youth organizations, and we had input. Again, we went back to the drawing board and try to correct and make sure that this reflects what you want, what the youths really want. We had another one to represent the South in Abuja, 25th to 26th of October. And all the NGO, youth organization, youth groups from the South were present at that meeting. And then we had a validation meeting in Abuja as well. That validation meeting was done, and the Speaker of the House was also in that meeting. Well, this is another opportunity. The process is still on. The draft has been submitted. The UNFPA is looking at it, and the Federal Ministry of Youth, they're also looking at it. But I think this is a very, very important forum, and I think it would be very good for you to look at it again and whatever your inputs are, we will be able to get them in. What are the principles that was driving this policy document? The first thing we try to do is to have a strong emphasis on stakeholders' input. We felt that this is a youth document. This is a youth policy that will determine what the nation does for the young people. And we felt that young people must be able to have a say. They have to be able to tell us the way they feel, what they want, and how they want to see things done. And that was why we had this series of stakeholders meeting in different parts of the country to get the youth input. Let the youth talk to us. Let them tell us what they feel. Let them tell us what they want. And that was very important. That was an important principle that we also wanted a national ownership. The Federal Ministry of Youth and Youth Development were there driving this process all through. Our first meeting was with them too, because we felt they are the ones to administer this policy. They must also be able to tell us exactly what were the difficulties with the previous policy and what do they want this to see. We also felt that we needed a policy that is evidence-based. A lot of the time we just do things in the air. We try to look at statistics and data and to be able to study the problem with the youth. What are the data that is available? What are the statistics that is available? And we try to make the policy evidence-based so that it's not just something that you just sit down somewhere and think about. That was a lot of the things that we did. We also felt that it was necessary for it to be a nationally responsive document. There were new issues that came up that were not there before. When we prepared the last policy, all the new challenges that have come up, the issue of the insurgency that we've had, the issue of internally displaced youths all over the country, they were not there when the other policy was developed. So we tried to make it a nationally responsive document, a document that is current, a document that is looking at current issues, and all of this was also very important. We also thought that youth issue is a multi-sectoral thing. It's not just the youth. The youth ministry is just supposed to be the coordinator. When we talk about youth issue, education has to be involved, employment has to be involved, social welfare, even finance have to be involved, and all the different ministry have to be involved. And we thought that we needed an integrative approach, and these were some of the principles that guided this policy that we have been able to put together. Now let's look at the product itself. We had the first section. These are about 7 different sections in this policy. We try to make this policy very simple, reader friendly. We try to make it as compact as possible. We pull the issues together so that they are composite yet very comprehensive, unlike the previous ones that just has a long list. And we try to make sure that this time around it will be easy for us to monitor the implementation. We'll be able to see the issues and be able to follow them. We have the rationale and the background for the policy. We did a situation analysis which covered employment, which covered environmental issues, which covered politics, covered issues about ethics and nationalism. So the situation analysis was very comprehensive. We're trying to look at the current situation of Nigerian youth with the most current data we could get to try and throw up what are the issues with Nigerian youth, what are the problems that are bedeviling the Nigerian youth. All of that we did in the situation analysis. Then we also have the policy contexts and guiding principles. All of these are there in the policy. We also had the vision. The previous policy didn't have a vision. We had vision, we had goals, and then we had target population, and then the strategic thrust of the policy, which is the main area of the policy, the different areas that the policy will cover.
The professor, sorry to cut you short, 1 minute.
Yeah.
I will call on the majority leader now.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I call on the House to further suspend the relevant rules to accommodate the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, Honorable Barrister Solomon Dalong. I call on the Minority Leader to second. Thank you.
The Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I hereby second the motion moved by the Majority Leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, if you are in support of the motion to admit into this parliamentary gathering the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, Barrister Solomon Dalong, please say aye. Aye. And if you are against, say no. The ayes have it. I have the singular honor and privilege, and the Parliament's honor and privilege to invite to this parliamentary sitting the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, Barrister Solomon Dalong. He is very knowledgeable in parliamentary sitting. I think he deserves a standing ovation for that. Thank you. May we have our seats, please?
Honorable Minister, you are welcome. Yeah, thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister, you're very welcome. I was just trying to give an overview of the draft youth policy. I think it's important that the Youth Parliament should have an input. They have been involved all the while in the process. And so I'm just giving an overview of the youth policy, the way it is. I talked about the process that we have gone through in trying to make this an all-encompassing policy. We have tried to make it youth-centered and youth-driven. Since 2013, we have tried to get inputs from youth organizations and youth bodies across the country. And I was just talking about the different section of the policy. The first section is a background. The second part of the policy is a situation analysis, which is a very robust section where we try to look at the current issues that is bedeviling our young people in the country. We also had some guiding policy context. The policy is not standing on its own. It has a context, and we also try to highlight that. We had the vision, we had the strategic thrust of the policy, and then we also had a section dealing with the implementation framework. How do we ensure that this policy is implemented? And I think it's the duty of you young people to hold government accountable, to be able to say, yes, this is what is in the policy, and ensure that this policy is just not another document that will end up in the shelf, but that every bit of the policy is implemented. We also built in some monitoring and evaluation system into the policy so that we can actually monitor the implementation of the policy from time to time. So these are some of the sections. In the background of the policy, we tried to build a rationale for the revision of the national policy. We looked at the context of the policy. Youths are one of the greatest assets that any nation can have. And I think that a nation will be undoing itself if it does not put in the front burner youth issues. Because youth, they are not just the future leaders, they are partners today. And they are the major asset that any nation would have. So not only are they legitimately regarded as partners of today, they are also potentially and actually the greatest investment that any country will have. Now, how should we define youth? Now, this was a major issue that came up in talking about this issue, and that is still up there, and we would like to have your inputs too in looking at the definition of youth? How do we define youth? United Nations divide young people as from 15 to 24. Commonwealth says young people from 15 to 29. The African Youth Charter defines youth as from 15 to 35. And the last policy that we had defined young people from the age of 18 to 35. And we had lots of debates each time. They consulted me. Young people have come up with issues and what are the things that should be done, what should we adopt as the nation's definition of young people. We had as consultants, because our duty is to make sure that we look at evidence, we look at data, and we suggested what we thought should be the definition of youth. What we found out will actually shock you. We found out that less than 5% of Nigerians are in school at the age of 29. Less than 5%. That's the data that we found in looking at age 29. Less than 5% of Nigerians are in school. And about 3/4 of males at the age of 29 are married. About 3/4 of males in this country at the age of 29, they are married already. And 90% of females at 29 are already married. And we also found out that the pubertal age of maturation is actually coming down. So we felt retaining the age at 18 may not necessarily, because young people have their first menses as early as 10, 11 these days. And to be able to capture young people who are coming and maturing into that youth age, we felt that we should move the age to 15 instead of the 18 that we have now. We're aware that there is a youth policy, there's a child policy that captures, from under 18 to 0. But that overlap is very necessary. We lose a lot when we miss teenagers at that age. And so we suggested that we should have 15 to move the age to 15 instead of 18 so that we can capture that age group. We also suggested that we should peg the upper limit at 29. Although there was a lot of debate about this, but we felt if one of the indicators of when you become an adult, when you mature, is marriage. If we have 90% of females marrying before the age of 29, and about 3/4 of males married at the age of 29, and 5% are out of school by 29, we felt that for government to be more effective, and for the youth policy to be, we can monitor it easily. If the age gap is too wide, and everybody is a youth, people don't want to grow out of that age. You find people who are 45 and 50, they are still in the youth category. And part of the problem that we had with the Youth Council is that young people never want to grow old. Everybody remains young. And the issue is that, look, we have to think of implementation. We have to think of a group that we can capture and ensure that we get good results. Well, this is debated. We've thrown it back to the ministry and to our development partners, but we looked at it as consultants. Our duty is to give evidence, give reasons why we think it's supposed to be so, but the ultimate decision is you. This is your document, and you will be the ones but we should be guided by proper principles, best practices as well, and what will help government to do what is proper. So that was a major situation analysis. The youth demographic is there. You can find that most of the young people, about 60% of the population of this country is within the age range of young people. We did situation employment, entrepreneurship, and poverty. You know that unemployment is a big issue. And the situation analysis we did was very comprehensive. We had an up-to-date data on youth unemployment in this country. The issue of entrepreneurship, the issue of poverty also was brought up. The issue of violence and humanitarian situation was also highlighted. Education was a major component that we reviewed. And then we tie that to training, capacity building, and the issue of entrepreneurship, vocational school. The issue of health was treated as a major standalone by itself, because for young people, health issues are also key. We looked at political engagement and inclusion. We felt that young people need to have a place. They need to be brought in, and that's why this youth parliament thing, it's really a great idea. And a major part of this policy captured political engagement and inclusion. We also look at disability and young people with special needs. We captured all of that. We looked at migration issues. These are some of the issues that we looked at. The principles that guided, we did a lot of consultation so that this document will be owned by young people. That's why I'm here again talking to you, to the youth parliament. We want you to be the owners of this document. We want you at the end of the day to be able to say, yes, we had our input in it and we spoke our mind and it was captured. So our main principle is that there should be national ownership of this document. We also looked at the issue of fundamental human rights. That was a big issue that we took into consideration in developing this policy. And youth as resources. We also looked at coherence with other youth-related policies. We looked at other youth-related policies, the national policy on education, the national policy, even the child policy, all policies that are related to the youth. We looked at them and had input in producing this policy. We felt that youth issues should be mainstreamed. It shouldn't be a back burner issue. For every line ministry, there should be a mainstreaming of youth ministry in all the line ministry. And these are some of the things. And then we had this issue of commitment to results. The vision. We had a vision. The vision that we came up with, and young people had inputs for us to come up with this vision. It was crafted from inputs from our stakeholders. And it's interesting, the vision that the young people came up with. In Nigeria, where youth live in a safe and secure environment with equal opportunities to realize their dreams and aspirations, irrespective of their background, and also to contribute optimally to national development. That was the policy. We also had a policy mission, which is there clearly. We also had an overall policy goal, and also that you can see right there. I am trying to save time. We had target population as well. We tried to look at how do we target this policy to different segments, because the youth population is not homogeneous. It's very heterogeneous. And how do we capture youths that are low risk? There are some youths that have no problem. They generally are good. They generally make the transition very neatly and nicely. And they are not, we call them low risk. So we targeted them, and how does the policy target this type of youth in order to ensure that their potentials, the nation taps into their potential? We also looked at a group that we call especially vulnerable youths. These are categories of youths that are vulnerable either because of their circumstances, their background, or because of nature, the way they were born, or something of that nature. We targeted them and tried to see how this policy can also bring out the best, because everybody has something to offer. Every young child, every young person in this country must be given an opportunity. And so this policy tries to cut across, give everybody a chance to be productive and to support national development. And then we had the youths that are most at risk. These are the ones that are already in prison, the ones that are already involved in violent situation, the ones that are sex workers, and so on and so forth. All of this we targeted in the policy and try to see how we can bring them also involved. To achieve the goal and objective of this policy, strategies and programs need to be carefully and specifically developed with appropriate target segmentation and context specificity to meet the need of each category of youth as defined above. All that you would find in the policy. Now, we divided our trust into 5 areas. This is key. This is the bone of the policy, the strategic trust and objective of the policy. The first one was productive workforce. How do we get our young people to be a productive workforce and a sustainable economic engagement of young people? That was a cluster, and that was a huge cluster. And we looked at so many things. We had objectives. We had also how to fulfill those objectives for that area. The other area we had is health and health promoting lifestyle. That's another huge cluster. We looked at that. We had objectives under that, and we looked at how we can ensure that young people have a health promoting lifestyle. Then we had this issue of participation, inclusiveness, equitable opportunity for young people, so that young people are not just pushed and referred to as leaders of tomorrow, but what are they today? So we need to bring them on board. And there's a whole section on political engagement, inclusion, and equitable opportunity for young people. Then we had the environmental issues are cutting edge issues nowadays. So we felt we needed to also have a section that will promote and protect the environment for youth development. And there's a whole cluster on that, and we did that too. And then we had partnership building and effective collaboration. That was another area, training youth workers, professionalization of youth work in this country, so that youth workers are just not posted from different ministry. Youth work is a profession, and we need professionals to be involved in youth work. All of this we highlighted in the policy. So you can see there are 5 strategic areas, and this 5 strategy was expanded to 10 thematic areas, and then we had 21 objectives. The thematic areas are education, employment, health services, health-related behavior, civic engagement, political inclusion, human rights, peace and security, capacity for youth development, and multi-sectoral collaboration. And then all of this together, we have 21 objectives to drive this. And you can see them in a tabular form. You have details of it in the policy, productive workforce, the thematic area, the objective. We had 4 objectives under that. Employment creation, we have 3. The lead ministries and MDAs, those who should lead each of these trusts, we also highlighted them. There were lots of inputs. There were so many that we didn't include, but in the last consultative meeting that we had to include them. And I would like you to look at this again and see those who will help in the implementation of this strategic trust. Civic engagement, political inclusion, we have INEC, we have Youth Development Ministry, we have different areas, the environment issues, we have all of that there, and the different areas that are implementation framework. We also thought, look, we need the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports to be in the driver's seat. We also felt we needed National Youth Council. That issue has to be looked into. We need to make sure that there is a body that will be like an umbrella that is acceptable to everybody. The way it is now, it appears that it's being politicized, and there's lots of division, and we had a lot of difficulty, and young people had a lot to say about that. In the package that I sent to the ministry, I also did a memo along with it, and they need to look into that and to ensure that the Youth Council is supposed to do what it's supposed to do and not become a political, be used as a cannon fodder to further all. These are all issues which we highlighted. We also talked about the National Council on Youth, Youth Council of Nigeria. We also talked about creating a coordination mechanism, a technical working group on youth development, government institutions such as the presidency, legislative bodies, education, health, women affairs. We listed all of this and gave their roles and their responsibilities. And the organized private sector, civil society, international development partners, they all have a role in the implementation of this policy. We also believe that certain aspects of the policy should be legislated and promulgated into law, and I think the Youth Parliament will come in very useful here to identify the areas that will be promulgated into law. We also have an M&E system, as I told you, monitoring and evaluation of data that is collected. We suggested that there should be a midterm evaluation. There should be an end of policy cycle. You don't just end a policy and wrap it up like that without an evaluation. There has to be what was wrong with the previous policy and what are the gaps that needed to be filled. And that's what we tried to do. We also suggested that we should do this at local government level, at state level, and at the national level. And I think here is where the young people themselves need to come on board to ensure that this policy is monitored and it is implemented appropriately. Hold the responsible organs. We have also identified the responsible bodies. Hold them accountable. We also suggested that the policy should be youth-friendly. We should also make pocket size of the policy so that every young person has a copy, a pocket copy of the policy, and we can look at it, and that way we can monitor the implementation so that this policy will not just be end up on the shelf, not being implemented. We also talked about the need for research to generate relevant data, and we also highlighted the agents that will be responsible for this. By investing in the right policies and programs for young people, for adolescents and young people, to realize their potential and their human rights to health, education, and full participation in society, we can unleash the vast human potential of this SDG generation, Sustainable Development Generation, to transform the entire world. This was a quotation that I thought was very interesting, that if we do this, there's a vast potential that we can unleash, and this nation will become a great nation. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for the opportunity that I have to make this presentation. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you, distinguished Prof. Please, can you please stay a bit, sir? Prof, can we still have you for...
That's right. We can have inputs now.
Yeah, thank you.
We can take some
if
comments
you
and
need
questions.
a seat, please,
Okay.
kindly ask for one.
I think I would need
Thank
one.
you very much. So thank you very much, Professor, and I want to commend you for a good job you have done here. And there's something that strikes me in all that you say, and I always like to say that, and particularly some of us that have had interface with you. And the word, you people, you always push it back to the young people that we should decide for ourselves. As in giving us such opportunity really inspires us a lot. We have a lot of people that are only committed to youth development or youth inclusion, by mouth service or by paying lip service to that. They instruct you on what to do, and they expect you as young persons without direction to carry it out. But you always give us the opportunity to come. And something we have noticed is that everything we have mentioned, either good, bad, or ugly, you have tried in your way to first accommodate it. And you know the professional way of turning it into a way. So thank you very much. I want to appreciate the Minister of Youth and Sports, as in he has a very tight schedule, but with that he had listened so much, because this is one document that youth development in Nigeria is pivoted upon, and it is one key document that matters to us in the Nigerian Youth Parliament. So I want to still seek for more patience, a little bit more, so that we can really deliberate and the minister can see his younger ones contributing to National Youth Development Review, the draft of the National Youth Policy Review document, sorry. So I'll call on a few of our members to quickly throw in some contributions and questions as it arises. We have done a copy, we have circulated it to our members. They have read through too, and they have just 1, 2, 3, as in so that the minister here present can have a direct view of the pulse of the Nigerian youth. And thereafter we'll have the minister. Thank you. So quickly, please. Parliamentarians, can I have your hands up, please? Yes, we will be brief. Yes, Honorable Tunde Owolabi. Please be very brief. Thank you.
The Honorable Speaker the Minister of Youth and Sport Development, our professor, and my fellow colleagues. My name is Honorable Babatunde Olabi. I represent Osun Central Senatorial District. I have a copy of the policy with me here, which I've been able to go through some aspect of it. I'm actually paying attention into the health sector, which is health and health promoting lifestyle. Going through it, I have a couple of recommendations in the sense that presently there is what they call Health for All, which is being originated during the Alma Ata Declaration in 1976. So in this aspect of Health for All, it's lay emphasis on the need for everybody to have access to quality health and quality lifestyle. Based on this, what's related to youth presently is issue of the mental health, which is part of the declaration. We can see that the mental health is one of the things that has really caused us a lot of disadvantage in the country. And this is often common as a result of depression. Depression is something that is very common to everybody. Yes, sir.
Please let me quickly cut you short. We'll continue with this process soon.
Okay.
As in the minister have to leave now.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Prof, please, can you please still have your seat? Then we'll call you up sometime soon. Thank you very much. Then I call on the majority leader. And before I call on the majority leader, okay, let's take the vote first. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I would like to further suspend some of our rules and move that the House grant the honorable minister the privilege to address this parliament. I call on the minority leader to second. Thank you.
Minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, I hereby second the motion that the minister will address the House. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, if you are in support of the motion, say aye. Aye. And if you are against, say no. The ayes have it. We have the parliamentary honor to invite the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports Development to the podium. Honorable Minister, sir, before you proceed, the Nigerian youth want to engage you briefly after this, before you leave, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. The Right Honorable Speaker of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, the Deputy Speaker, the Majority Leader, Your Excellencies, all other principal officers of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, honorable members of the Parliament, His Excellency, the German Ambassador, His Excellency, the representative of the Russian Ambassador, the lead consultant, National Youth Policy Review, the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, Nigeria, directors of the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, Federal Republic of Nigeria, gentlemen of the pen profession, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Speaker, it is with every sense of responsibility I welcome you all to the third sitting of the third session of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, an initiative conceived to facilitate and develop young people into politically aware and responsible citizens by involving them in parliamentary deliberations and decision-making processes in order to empower the youth for leadership position as truly future leaders. The hallmark of democracy, as you will all agree with me, is the right of everyone, including the youth, to participate in, influence, and have a say on issues that affect their lives. In consideration of this, the numerical strength of the Nigerian youth and a growing consensus that youth participation is not only demonstrated, but a desirable value. The Nigerian government, under the leadership of late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, may his soul rest in perfect peace, inaugurated the Nigerian Youth Parliament in August 2008. Since its inception, the Parliament has been serving as a veritable platform for inclusion of all the youth in governance processes and a learning ground for the acquisition of knowledge of legislative processes and procedures, as well as leadership skills. As you are aware, the administration of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, is implementing this initiative. Programs and projects that directly respond to the special needs of the youth. Accordingly, the Youth Parliament has become a veritable platform for the youth to contribute in shaping these policies, programs, and projects aimed at improving their well-being. I am glad to note that the Nigerian Youth Parliament has become one of the most successful platforms through which the ministry promotes youth participation and inclusion in Nigeria. The Nigerian Youth Parliament has so far produced State House of Assembly members, youth leaders in partisan politics, chairperson of global youth organizations, including the Commonwealth Youth Council, among others. These litanies of achievements underscore the conviction of the current administration that when an enabling environment is created for young people, they can excel, reach their full potentials, and become major contributors to the political and socio-economic development of the nation. In this regard, the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development will not relent in our advocacy for social inclusion and effective participation of young men and women in the nation's development process, economic rebirth, and transformation. In line with the above, programs of the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development are geared towards making our young people change agents for peaceful coexistence, good governance, as well as essential resources for sustainable socio-economic development and poverty eradication. Government will not rest on its laurels until the Nigerian youth are properly positioned like their counterparts in advanced democracies across the globe. At this juncture, Mr. Speaker, permit me to use this platform to appeal to all Nigerian youth to deliberately promote peaceful coexistence in whichever way and in every part of the country they reside. You will agree with me that sustainable development cannot take place in the absence of peace. We must work, therefore, to support government efforts to ensure peaceful coexistence of every Nigerian, irrespective of his tribe, religion, or race. The honorable parliamentarians, your states have placed a burden of leadership on you by selection to represent millions of your counterparts back home. It is expected of you to prove that you are worthy of this trust as good ambassadors who can be trusted with bigger responsibilities on behalf of the Nigerian youth. Their interests and expectation must be paramount in your debates and the resolutions to be reached in this parliamentary session. I will enjoy this third sitting to set aside quality time to deliberate on the lingering feud in the National Youth Council of Nigeria, NYCN. As you are all aware, the National Youth Council of Nigeria has for some years now been embroiled in serious leadership crisis, with the various feuding camps leveraging on strong external influence, holding tenaciously to their positions to the detriment of the overall well-being of the Nigerian youth they represent. Another sad consequence of the crisis is that it has deprived Nigerian youth from benefiting from donor programs and sponsorship that could have bettered their lots. This is clearly rascality by every definition of every non-encyclopedia. And this is rascality taken to the extreme. We will not fold our arms and watch and also allow a few group of people or persons to hold in the balance the fortune of the Nigerian youth. I charge you therefore to accord to this matter the attention it deserves. I particularly look forward to recommendations in this regard. In conclusion, I want to assure you that the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development will ensure that necessary measure is put in place to synergize and lobby the National Assembly so that the resolution of these parliaments are accorded due executive attention. It is on this note, honorable members of the Youth Parliament of Nigeria, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that I will declare the third sitting of the third session of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, which is in progress, open. I wish you all a happy and fruitful deliberations. I thank you for offering yourself to serve your country at this point in time. And Mr. Speaker, before I warm my seat, I have also listened to the review of the National Youth Policy as been presented by our consultant. I urge you all to deliberate and discuss extensively on this policy. This policy holds the future of youth development in Nigeria. You must be passionate in discussing it. I would also want to assure Mr. Speaker that we will also embark on reforms of the National Youth Parliament and ensure that the National Youth Parliament in future will be by election. Members will be elected from their various states and not to be nominated again. If we are advocating democracy, then we must ride on the horse of democracy and then go to the market and look for democracy. But we cannot be riding on an undemocratic horse to the market and will be advocating and crying to look for democracy. We will also ensure that we'll engage our consultant in also fashioning out a sort of a quasi-youth government where the decisions of the National Youth Parliament will also have to go to the executive arm. And the executive arm of the youth, which will more or less be the National Youth Council, will have to also implement some of these decisions, while the ministry played the role of supervision, creating enabling environment, and also engaging on our partners who will be funding the youth programs in Nigeria. As to the issue of the age, Mr. Consultant, your analysis has placed the youth in more jeopardy. Because if we are going to talk of 15 to 29, and by 29, most young people are married. But at 29 that they are married, are they within the economic mainstream? If they are not, then the policy will further exclude them. 35 is more realistic when you align our other laws. I joined the National Youth Movement at 20. And I remained there until when I was 35. At 35, we have a tradition of pulling out. Quite interesting and an honorable ceremony, where when you are 35, a ceremony is held for those of you who have attained those ages, and you are pulled out. Then you take your seat as a veteran. That was the tradition of the Youth Council before this powerful political hurricane stormed the Youth Council and threw it into confusion. The youth movement was quite a noble movement. We inherited it from our founding fathers. Albert Macaulay was a youth activist. So it has a long tradition in Nigeria. So it is sad that today the youth movement have been thrown into confusion. The speaker himself, when we were at the Commonwealth Youth Conference, for me, I was embarrassed, but for the speaker, he was disgraced. We only had to manage it. We only had to manage the situation because every country was submitting reports and performances of the National Youth Council of Nigeria. And every member of the Commonwealth was looking at the giant to now cap it all. And of course, we were looking down and trying to present a report that was different from our demeanor and also was not comfortable with our state of mind. This was the situation we found ourselves because we couldn't have explained what has become of the Nigerian youth movement. Mr. Speaker, we must push certain things to you people. Because if we decide at our own level, you said, oh, they have taken decision and they are trying to superimpose it on us. I will not become a youth leader again. I have finished my own part. I have been pulled out. I can only advise. I can only guide. And during the days of our youth movement, it was even not under democracy. It was under military rule, which was even too difficult for you to advocate. We were living most of our lives underground to challenge government. Today, it is easy for you under democracy to express your mind. But the sad situation is that we took our rights and negotiated. And I hope this third sitting will serve the Nigerian youth movement. God bless Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you. The distinguished Minister of Youth and Sports, Barrister Solomon Dalong, that speech was inspiring. And on behalf of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, we want to appreciate you specially. I know in all youth movements, I think the Nigerian Youth Parliament, to a certain degree, have enjoyed a lot of support from your administration. You have given us opportunities to see and meet the rest of the world. And you have also funded, in the history of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, I think this is the only session that is having a third sitting before the expiration of his tenure. I think this is commendable, but as Oliver Twist, I think we still need to do more, particularly on the national youth movement. And we, on our own, took a decision last night that some few cabals, cannot hijack the destiny of the other millions of Nigerian youth. And we are going to be taking a very precise decision on what to do. And we, in collaboration or partnership with the ministry, ably led by you, sir, we believe that if we implement this, we are going to have a lasting solution to this crisis. So on our own part, we want to say thank you. And before we go to the questions, sir, the Parliament has agreed to give you the highest honor a Parliament can give to anybody, and that is the standing ovation. So may we please all rise, a standing ovation for the Minister of Youth. Thank you very much. May we have our seat. So distinguished colleagues, you have heard from the Minister. He has decided to stand up because he plays football a lot. He's fit, so don't worry. We offered him a seat. He said he was going to stand. So please, let the questions be short and direct. We have the minister today. Thank you very much. So, are we starting from the majority or the minority party? Okay, we should start from the minority. Okay, the minority leader is looking at me. Okay, you are recognized, sir.
Mr. Speaker, my distinguished colleagues, the Honorable Minister present in the House, we are delighted to have you today because for so many of our sittings you've been absent, but thank God today you are present here. A day when a crucial issue was analyzed before you. We are happy that you have done justice to the issue of the age and such may not want to raise it to you again.
Sorry to interrupt you, Honorable. Please, you should introduce yourself, your name, your constituency, right, your position, and your party.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
I am Honorable Obande Gideon Obande, member representing Benue South Senatorial Zone, and by the grace of God, the leader of the Republican Party, which is the minority party in the Parliament. Sir, as minorities, we are often conservatives in our views, and I will come from that dimension, sir. We are happy that you have said the Parliament should proffer solutions. Before we throw this question to you, sir, we want to say the willpower we have often seen you display during our days under you in the University of Jos, you will display it as Minister of Youth to correct this situation and correct it permanently. Because we know that 50% of the problem of the Youth Council has been the role of the Ministry of Youth on the activities of the Youth Council. And so we are looking forward to a Ministry of Youth under your leadership that will stand aloof, monitor as an umpire to see a healthy process of youth leadership and youth formation come to be in the Youth Council. But my question will be this, sir. The Nigerian Youth Parliament, as you said during your presentation, permit me to add that there is a formation for this, the picking of leaders, that I will not totally agree that it was a total selection. But I will say that because the ministry, before you came in, neglected supervision to ensure that the right thing was done was the reason why you have commissioners of youth from states writing names and forwarding to the ministry. The commissioners of youth were supposed to preside over a committee that has spread cut across the NBA, the NUJ, and even the National Youth Council as co-members, and INEC as part of it, to oversee a process that will lead to the emergence of these persons that will represent from the 3 senatorial zones. And I must tell you that before you came, these have been neglected. And if you ask me, there is no process that can be, for now, as credible as did for a youth organization, have the supreme body of elections in this country there to also observe and preside as co-officers for the process of the emergence of a youth leader. And I think if we are adding to what we already have to make it more robust, it will reflect the democracy you want. But sir, I must tell you that you are seeing it from the perspective you saw it now, because before you, it was not followed. And that is why it looked like people just sit down, write names, and come submit it in Abuja. But there was a process in our framework that should be followed for the emergence of this leader, sir. But my question, I come to it at this point. 2 years in office, wonderful display in the sports sector, so many trophies. I am not permitted to say we should clap for you, but we'll clap for you in our minds. But on the aspect of youth development, we have had less than 20% support in the aspect of youth development. My question is, if the council have been held down because a certain cabal or a particular individual who feel she or he owns the council have refused to allow the council move, what has negated or what has militated against the total engagement of the parliament at the national level, at the state levels, and since we have representation cut across the senatorial zones, to be saddled with responsibility of implementation and execution of programs and policies that is borders on the youth of this country at our level as a parliament? You will agree with me that the best and the fairest representation you can ever have in any youth organization is at the parliament, where every state has equal representation, every region is properly represented, every ethnic sector, regardless of minority affiliations, are properly represented. And I will say that this would have been the best of the youth organizations to be used for implementations. In my A part, I want to ask why it has taken this long for us to be brought in. And in the B part, I want to say, with the words you have said, are we saying that our resolutions as young people representing the entire populace of young Nigerians, because we are partially and properly represented here, that whatever position is taken as it borders on this framework, as it will be reviewed today and possibly at committee levels to give a final touch to it, are we saying that it is going to be expressed? If the answer is then yes, I will then be asking my last question, sir. The BOT of the so proposed youth arrangement, will it be from the youth population of the age of 18 to 35 that you have just re-entrated, or is it going to be that youths at heart will be selected to represent the youths that are physically body-wise? Permit me, sir, at this point to say that I know your capacity to often and always stand and defend what is meant to be. And we know that at the end of the day, whatever is deliberated here will have an express passage. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Abande. Please, we would like us to be short and straight to the point. You have a valid point. So please, henceforth, we'll be taking just few questions more. As in, then, I'll be Honorable Adetayo.
The Right Honorable Speaker, sir, very distinguished colleagues. My name is Honorable Adetayo Abimbola Adekunle. I am a member of the largest party in the House, Democrats, and I represent Oyo Central Senatorial Constituency. During the course of our inauguration, we were told in these hallowed chambers that our resolutions shall be forwarded to both the legislature and the executive for implementation. My question would go to the Honorable Minister. Sir, how come the Nigerian Youth Parliament has not been able to pay a courtesy call to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2 years? If indeed the Council is almost lying prostrate because of legal issues and political issues, as my colleague said the other time, we have a very virile body, an able body known as the Nigerian Youth Parliament. At different forums, we have represented well to the best of our abilities. We have presented certain ideas, motions, even bills and policy issues that should be taken care of, most especially by the executive and because of implementation. Sir, I'll put it to you, sir, that we want to know the reason why this parliament has not been taken, once again, to His Excellency the President to officially present the resolutions of Nigerian youths. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Barrister Mark Alu, you have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Minister for that eloquent presentation. We are indeed delighted to have you in our midst today. And perhaps as a lawyer heading this prestigious ministry, this unique ministry, and at a time that the country is grappling with economic challenges and perhaps some problems with delivering our teeming youth and students and the likes in the country. Sir, the time allotted to me is 1 minute. I just put the question straight. What mechanisms or measures are you putting in place to enhance, perhaps, just as you have said, in a nearby future, the parliamentarian as we are here will be done not based on selection but will be elected from our various constituencies? What mechanisms? We have our framework, we have our standing order, we have the constitution that is regulating our affairs in this country. The India Constitution, for instance, in chapter 4, makes it is not justiciable as it is in Nigeria by virtue of chapter 2. And all the policy as contained in this draft national youth policy that we have heard from our erudite professor is geared towards promoting chapter 2 of our constitution, which is to the effect that the fundamental objective and directive principle of state should be the sole responsibility of government, wherein will achieve whatever that we need that will make life meaningful. But you will agree with me that the chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended of Nigeria is not justiciable. What impact will it have when somebody said is having the right to life or right to dignity of person as canvassed or encapsulated in chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution, and the chapter 2 is not making it meaningful, taking India perspective that has to be done in such a way that government policy is channeled towards that direction. Sir, I want to put it on the final note that having established that henceforth the Parliament will be elected, I want to urge that you take our resolution seriously and allow the National Assembly to work on them for implementation so as to give this Nigerian Youth Parliament a full legal backing it deserves. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. The Majority Leader, quickly, 30 seconds now.
Honorable Minister.
The Chief will please take note, 30 seconds.
I have a simple question. We want to know, the UN have 37 space for the Nigerian youths to develop their careers. What is happening? That is number one. Then number two. Yeah, number two,
Number one.
yeah, that is number one.
No, come again.
The UN have 37 space slots for Nigerian youth.
The United Nations.
The United Nations has 37 slots for the Nigerian youth to develop their careers. What is happening? Then the issue of unemployment. I want to know what the Honorable Minister is doing, because we have hundreds and thousands of people graduating every year. There is no job in this country. As a Minister of Youth, what are you doing to actually salvage the situation on ground? Then, sometime last year, UN Envoy on Youth came into this country to meet with Nigerian leaders, youth leaders. We will now express that we came in, they invited us, and we will not be the people to tell them what we want in this country. There's a foreigner coming into this country to tell us what do we want from our government, our own government. And I believe it's a taboo that a foreigner will come into this country to bring us together and ask us what we want, and you will not take the message back to the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is our duty to express what we want to the President of this country. And I think henceforth, I believe if such kind of invitation comes up, the Parliament should take it serious by not attending it. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Kabiru Dala. And after Honorable Kabiru Dala, gender sensitivity. Okay, gender. Honorable Kabiru, 30 seconds, then. Okay. No, please. Honorable Kabiru, 30 seconds, then okay. Gender, just one more.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable Dr. Ibrahim Kabiru Dalla. I'm representing the young people of Nasarawa South Senatorial District. My question is straight to the Minister of Youth. You can see, you may not be far from the truth that there is crisis in the National Council of Nigeria. But as a matter of fact, the Honorable Minister, I think the ministry are part of the crisis. Recently, I read on one of the national dailies where you are identifying with one of the factional presidents of the National Council of Nigeria by name Murtala Mohammed Gamji. And before then, the late Oluwole Olembe that died was the CTC chairman of the caretaker committee of the National Council of Nigeria. But it is very unfortunate that the Ministry of Youth are now identified with the factional president of the National Council of Nigeria. My second question, sir, the Honorable Minister, sometimes we normally watch on the TV where you organize town hall meetings without the proper notice to the youth parliament, to the Nigerian Youth Parliament. How comes, what method have you used to invite the youth to a town hall meeting without consulting the main representative of the youth across the board? Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Gender, last question. Gender, please. Gender. Honorable Blessing.
The Honorable Minister of Finance, my speaker.
Finance.
I'm sorry, please. The Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports.
Quiet, please. Most distinguished, quiet. We understand the situation.
My dear colleagues,
please.
I'm sorry.
Yes, please. We understand the financial situation.
Really? I'm sorry. Mine I come like an appeal, Honorable Minister. I'm so glad, I'm grateful to be here with such experience of leadership. My appeal is this, sir. For your training, for you to train us with the capacity building of leadership, I appeal that you should not train us and dump us. You should train us and attach us to our senators in different senatorial districts. We will make our training not to dump, but we impact it and use it in our different states. Thank you.
Order, please. Order,
Thank
please.
You. Please.
Order, please.
Order, please. As in, please let us just appreciate this opportunity. Honorable Water, please go back to your seat. Thank you. As in, let us appreciate this opportunity. Let us not take advantage of it. As in, Honorable Sharon, once you are done, it is done. the minister will respond to us. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, the Speaker, the ambassadors, my colleagues and other youths present, my name is Honorable Sharon Omotayo, member representing Edo North Youth in the Nigerian Youth Parliament. My question is the National Youth Council so powerful that the ministry cannot suppress them? First question. Then my second question is, the minister said from henceforth the next sections of the parliament will be by election, and we are not partisan. If we are not partisan and you say it's going to be by election, for us to be free and fair to our youth, for instance, I want to organize a program for my youth, I will do that when I will be fair to them when I know that there were nobody that was against me. But when you now consult, there is an election, and after the election, you know that there are some youths, that is just fact about life. There are some persons that were not in support of you during your election. Do you think you'll be free to work for the youth, to canvass for those youths that you knew they were against you? So I don't understand, if it now becomes by election, what measure does the ministry have to check those youths so that they could be fair in representing their youths? Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. I think we are done with the questions. Any other questions should be channeled to the principal officers. Now we have the listening ear of the minister who will channel it through appropriate quarters. The Honorable Minister, sir.
Mr. Speakers, honorable members, I will start answering by reverse. I think there are about 3 questions that are related to the issue of the election of the National Youth Parliament and the methodology. I think the Parliament is just forgetting too fast that I spent 15 years of my life in the youth movement. And so the conduct of the election in the youth movement is not strange. It usually starts at the ward level or village level, and it comes to the district, and then goes to the local government. And from the local government, you now elect delegates to the state congress. The delegates at the state congress now elect delegates to the national congress. It is the delegate at the national congress that elects the national leadership. So over close to 70, 80 years, this tradition has been established. So the few years of confusion should not be taken to misrepresent the very good and laudable tradition of the national youth movement. When I came on board, there was so much pressure about the credibility of this parliament. And so many names were sent because members of the parliament had their names submitted before I came on board. And when I came on board with a new government, there were also petitions and complaints from all over the country for another selection to take place. But I insisted that as a Democrat, I would not look back. Anybody that his name was submitted is a Nigerian youth, and as at the time he was selected, he was qualified to be selected. So I will proceed from where I met the system. Otherwise, we would have gone for another election if I had submitted to the enormous pressure that came from the states. Back to the issue of the commissioners getting involved. I'm happy that the minority leader identified that the commissioners did not do what is right, and he sought to know how we can do it. Of course, you know, there is an adage in Hausa that says, if somebody is presenting a gift of address to you, you first have to profile the one he's wearing before you collect the gift, lest you collect a stolen property. I don't think my capacity to democratize any institution in the ministry can be called to question. When we were democratizing the national federations, which has over 47 national federations, the system I met on the ground provided that I have the right to nominate 155 members. And that was the system. Ministers before me were nominating. I could have nominated my friends, nominated my family members. If I can't get enough, I'll come to the parliament here and get my friends and compliment them. But that will not help the system. That will not help sports. So the first thing I did was to sacrifice that right of nominating 155 and insisted that they must be elected too. And then called for, credible democratic process. Everybody who wants to hold office in the National Federation should go and contest election. He should hold office by determined votes. And I created the enabling environment. Today, when people talk of successes in sports, they forgot too soon that what is responsible is that the people have been allowed to choose their leaders freely, and they have chosen their best. And anybody you have elected, you will support and sacrifice for such a person. Therefore, the National Youth Parliament is going to be by election. If you want to contest membership, you go to the zone. It's an entirely youth affair. What government will do is to go there and create enabling environment for the youth to come and contest the election, provide security, their campaign, electoral committee is set up, they go there and campaign and elect their leaders. And anybody that is elected, whether it's from a poor background or is from a rich background, that is not important. The most important thing is that a young man has been elected to speak for the young people. I will take the issue of what will happen, what should happen to the members of this parliament. Of course, you will all agree with me that we are still undergoing teething problems with the practice and establishment of the National Youth Parliament. If since its establishment, deliberate steps were taken to nurture it, it would have been greater and stronger than what we have today. But I also want to inform Mr. Speaker that globally and in no distant future, countries across the world will be approaching Nigeria to understudy the workings of the Youth Parliament. Because even developed democracies do not have it. In fact, close to it is in Uganda. But what is happening in Uganda is a deliberate policy where you have concession, political concession made to young people to elect their leaders into the parliament. But the president admitted that that also again had developed a problem of clear representation, because it removed the young people from their natural environment as youth and taken them into the comfort zone. And you know, not every person who arrived at the comfort zone can think normally. So that has also been the problem. And they are still looking forward to a system like ours where young people can sit freely and discuss. If it was not an arrangement like this, some of the things that the honorable member said here, they wouldn't have said it. So the platform is a veritable tool that has to be developed and sustained. And it is going to grow into something that I believe when some of us would have not been living, it may be another arm of government in Nigeria based on our peculiarity. One member asked why the parliament has not seen the president, or why the parliament has not been taken to the president. The parliament is a parliament that has laid down rules and procedure. I don't want to somersault into something which I may not be able to explain. But I think there are laid down procedures of how to see the president. If the parliament writes and requests, it is for the president to approve and give them an appointment. So if the parliament has passed a resolution, the resolution is now, is it to mandate the minister to seek audience with the president, or what is the content of the resolution? But I think if the parliament is interested in seeing Mr. President is amenable and disposed to the extent that he's a man of procedure. So you request and we write. The issue of the Youth Council. Somebody said, is it that the Youth Council is so powerful that the ministry cannot do anything? And some persons have accused the ministry of dabbling in the past. Well, since we came on board, what I have virtually insisted should be done is let us try to develop a damage control mechanism and see how we can forge consensus understanding among the young people. We've also taken the responsibility to try to enlighten the youth to realize what they have lost because of the crisis. The ministry may be guilty of dabbling into it, but I think the mover of the motion should have also added that the youth were also more guilty for allowing themselves to be used. I thought the mover would have added this and the motion would have been okay. Yes, the ministry is guilty, but the youth offered themselves to be manipulated. If they had not, the ministry will not. I give you an example. The military governor of Plateau said wanted to dissolve the Youth Council. And his attempt was, he went on and pronounced that the youth movement was banned. And we regrouped and said, is it possible for somebody to ban a generation? Because the pronouncement is the effect that youths have been banned. It's not youth movement. We said, okay. We reviewed the situation and came to a conclusion that, okay, if we are going to confront the military, it may lead to a lot of casualty and we'll lose some of our members. So what we do was, we abandoned the youth movement and went our group under ethnic youth association. And from those ethnic youth association, we now mounted pressure on the government. The government, looking at the very diversified nature of the ethnic association, it prefers something that is common, and so decided to approach us to go and resuscitate the youth movement so that they can deal with us, because the ethnic youth associations were many and they were coming from different angles with different issues. And that was how we got the Youth Council again. They invited us, we went and collected our Youth Council and held election. What am I trying to put across? The youth have a great role to play in determining their future. Karl Marx argued that an oppressor will not give in oppressing the poor except he is forced to give it. So a man who has put his leg on the neck of a poor man is happy that the poor man is crying, because the music that makes him happy is the suffering of that man. So he will not want to take his leg by celebration. He must be asked to take that leg. So if the youth they are still saying, okay, we have been manipulated, and you want the same people who manipulate to come again and give you a right, I think that's a contradiction. You need to organize yourself better. You need to talk to yourself better. You need to form consensus on issues. You need to agree on your national vision. Very, very important. A UN envoy visited Nigeria to ask the youth what are their challenges. These are just regular and normal things that the international organizations do. They try to engage young people around the world to evaluate their feelings. And after they do that, they make presentations to the government, but they aggregate such opinions to help them form, global perspective of how to address youth problems. But I have always been accusing the UN for not doing too much for the youth. Because 72 years of existence, there is no youth commission in United Nations. There's only an office. As important as youth issues are, today the world is complaining of insecurity. Active participants in insecurity are the unemployed young people. And that the entire global youth have no office in the United Nations. They have no commission. They have an office. That is too unserious. It's a lip service. The youth issues should have a commission created by a resolution of the United Nations. It will give the youth some sense of belonging. But the international organization like UN only have an office. And the issues of youth is handled, through offices. I have been insisting, and I've been calling on the United Nations to pass a resolution and create a youth commission. Not only that, they should pass a resolution to mandate nations of the world to dedicate specific part of their annual budget to youth development. If education has 26%, how much is it dedicated to youth development? When you educate somebody with 26%, where do you want him to go from there? These are questions that the young people should ask. I have been challenging the United Nations. I will keep advocating. They must create an office for the youth. There should be a commission, and they must also mandate nations of the world. And that takes me to one of the issues. I was thinking this parliament would have saved me in 2016. But in all the deliberations of the parliament, they were very happy that we had zero budget for youth empowerment in 2016. And I'm so happy that I'm standing here and the parliament is raising issue. Why have you not done anything about us? Meanwhile, in 2016, there was zero budgetary allocation for youth development. No, the parliament is too informed not to know anything. Now, if the parliament has kept quiet, can I ask the honorable members, will I be more Catholic than the Pope? So I think maybe the parliament was comfortable with what was happening. Then at 52, I couldn't have gone on the street again to fight for people between 18 and 35. But I was left alone. The right honorable speaker knows what we went through. In fact, we had to sometimes go out to source for funds through counterpart funding to enable us embark on certain trips that involve members of the parliament. So 2016 was a terrible year. But sadly, there was no resolution here standing by, in my defense. Rather, the parliament was comfortable, and the parliament has now invited me to answer a question. The question I can answer was that in 2016, there was zero budget, and the parliament was okay with that. Town hall meeting without National Youth Council, National Youth Parliament members. I can't remember holding any town hall meeting since I came on. I know I go around the country, and at each point I find myself, I try to engage young people, yes, and discuss with them. But I think we must understand the working of this system. I am presiding over the ministry, which has youth development as a core component. I think I will answer this question with an adage in Hausa, that you don't teach the man who dig the well how to enter. The question here was just trying to ask me, the well, there's a deep well. We want you to tell us how you are going to enter. And the wisdom of descending into the well is exclusively man. If I'm going to jump in, well, that will determine how strong I am. If I'm going to open my legs and dig holes and go down, it's still the same thing. Maybe I may somersault to go inside the well. The honorable member that asked this question should please grant me the grace that, having been asked to enter the well, the wisdom of descending is mine. About the UN slots for youth development, the Parliament should also understand that the crisis of the Youth Council in a global environment is everywhere around the world. Our partners who have not come to Nigeria know that the youth are fighting, because they read stories about what the youth, the multiple leadership of youth movement are doing. That has scared so many of our partners from putting their resources in youth development. So I think that also has affected our relationship with some of our partners. But with stability in the youth movement, there are great potentials across that we could engage the youth. We had this UN volunteer system that we inherited, and government had already committed about 10 million then. We were supposed to have pay part of the counterpart funding, and then the youth will benefit from it. But shortly had government committed 10 million, fighting started in the Youth Council. And the driving organization is the National Youth Council of Nigeria. So with the proliferation of leadership, confusion stepped in, and that particular program is still hanging because that's little we could do. And then somebody had said, well, the minister is part of the problem because he's seen with one of the factional leaders. I am a father. If my children are fighting, that they are fighting does not mean that they cannot come to my house. They are free. Even the one that is the other side that has taken me to court and they got judgment, we are on appeal, is also free to come and see me. I'm the father. You will not expect me to say, go away. If I said go away, when will I call him to talk to him? If I don't show him love, will he listen to me when I will talk to him? So as a father figure, I'm not expected to have acted the way you are suggesting. For you as a young person and belonging to another camp, you are free to hold your camp, but it will be my responsibility to bring all your camps and ask you to give me the benefit of the fighting. If the fighting has no benefit, then we change strategy. It is important that we address this issue. This government, like I said, will do much to ensure that the youth are given priority. Youth development and related programs government invests in it and also ensure that the private sector is willing to invest in it. Because I have been saying that a country that fails to invest in the youth should not in the future question why crime is a religion in that same society. Because if you don't invest in the young people, you have produced criminals of tomorrow. You are going to produce different social problems of tomorrow. You are going to produce so many confusion of the future. So the best we can do is to try to invest in the youth, guide them right, so that they can contribute as partners to national development. So, President, I bring solidarity and greetings of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, who is aware that this session is beginning today. He will also look forward to hearing the outcome of these particular deliberations. What we do is, after we receive deliberations of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, we write and forward it to Mr. President. And it is the responsibility of Mr. President to direct accordingly. Those resolutions that require the flavor of legislation will find its way to the office of the Attorney General and then the National Assembly. Those that will require urgent attention or intervention from government, it will go to the Federal Executive Council and the attention is given. This is how serious this government takes this house. So as honorable members will discuss, they should know they are discussing their future, and they must discuss it with sacrifice, passion, every sense of responsibility, because the great future of this country lies in the hands of all of us seated here. I thank you again for giving me the opportunity, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We thank you for your time. We thank you for those insightful statements. I know it is not in the order of protocol to say anything after the minister said, but I would just like to chip in one or two things before you leave, sir. That in the year 2016, the only youth groups that were advocates of, that condemned the zero budgetary allocation was the Nigerian Youth Parliament. We stood firm to condemn it. And when we had the opportunity of seeing the President of the Senate, it was one of the things, our reservations, like I said that day, about this current National Assembly. And he apologized and promised us that the second year was going to be better, which we believe is better than what they had in 2017. Sir, I would like to inform you or to plead with you that the world is progressing and some things have to change. As in, some of us, through the help of the ministry and some personal efforts, we've had opportunities of engaging with strong democracies and developed nations. And we see that we are at a retrogressive rate in some of our engagement. The ministry has like a, what do I call it? Without sounding disrespectful, they have a sort of laid down ways which they believe cannot be altered. There is a progressive way by which things can be developed. As in, there was a time we were using house phones in Nigeria. There was a time it evolved into mobile phones, land phones. It evolved. So as development comes in, there are some things that evolve. Please, we want you to please plead with them that they should evolve, if not even astronomically, gradually, with what is obtainable with the rest of the world. And we can assure you that from our own ends, that we are going to ensure that we stand as the authentic and the true voice of the Nigerian youth. We are going to stand for everything they believe in, their welfare, their social security, everything, that their education, their mental health status, and even good governance, everything that will benefit the Nigerian youth. So once again, on behalf of these distinguished members of the Nigerian Youth Parliament. We want to say thank you for coming. And if I'm honored before you leave, sir, I would like a farewell handshake, sir, just before you leave. Thank you very much, sir. Hope the chairman ethics and privileges saw that. Said he's on parliamentary. Thank you very much. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. As in, you did well. In the past few months or few weeks, so to say, in the past few weeks, there was another training opportunity for young Nigerians. And some of our elder leaders, partners of today and leaders of tomorrow, were involved in this. This program brought up young minds that acted as governors of their various states for some particular time, for 60 days, and some winners emerged. And I want to announce to the House today that we have in our presence today Nana Promise Gulong, His Excellency, or Her Excellency, sorry, Nana Promise Gulong, Governor of Plateau State. And we have His Excellency Nafiu Bello Basakwache, Governor of Sokoto State. This last one, kindly forgive me. Chongvrom, His Excellency Chongvrom Hel Titus Pona, Governor of Bauchi. And we have Adelakun Adeyinka Ibrahim, Governor of Oyo State. Could you please rise up for recognition? They are at the gallery. We thank you for coming. Thank you for joining this deliberation from the Observers Gallery. So, do we have the majority leader?
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I move to suspend our rules to invite Professor Adoke to continue with his presentation, even though we only have some questions to answer. I call on the minority leader to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I hereby second the motion by the majority leader. Thank you.
If you support the motion, say aye. And if you are against, say no. The ayes have it. Prof, sir, we'd like to continue from where we stopped. We're very sorry for that break in transmission. Yes.
Distinguished parliamentarians, I think it's been a very fruitful moment with the Honorable Minister, and I think this kind of engagement should be held more often. I told the Minister that you did well today, but you need to do this a lot more often from time to time. So can we just take, somebody was asking a question at the time that the Honorable Minister came in. Can we just take your comments and questions?
Honorable Tunde Ulabi.
You are saying something about mental health and so on.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for re-inviting me again to buttress my points. Prof. Sir, thank you for your audience. The point I was trying to make earlier on was about the Alma Ata Declaration, whereby health for all is one of the cogent aspects of the resolution. And under this, we have the mental health, which is very key. Mental health is as a result of depression, which presently, when we look at average Nigerian, like over 65% fall in this category, which does not exclude the youth. And most of the things that this has lead to is right now we have a lot of social vices up and down in the country. We have a lot of dropouts in the institutions. We have a lot of young people taking different drugs. So these are the effects of all this depression. And going by this, I think it is important if we can include it in the national policy, national youth policy. If there can be a form of psychological development center, I mean guidance and counseling center across the institution, across the communities, which will be free and accessible for the youth. This can restore to the normalcy in the community, and as well, it can lead to the improvement and betterment of the youth. So I think it is very important under the theme, on the thematic area for the health development. That is number one, sir. Secondly, I will not fail to lend my voice to the issue of age deliberation. I think in as much as Nigeria exists as an entity, we still belong to the African continent. So I don't see, it's kind of worrisome if Nigeria can be doing something in, may I use the word contrary or a bit slightly different from what is obtainable in the entire continent, which we are a subset of. So I'm looking at a situation whereby we can still align ourselves with what is obtainable in the continent which we belong to. Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you. Do we take all the questions? Then I respond, or you want me to respond?
Okay, which order do we follow? Let's take all the questions.
Okay.
So that you can just respond to everything once and for all. Yep. Honorable Ngare Dogo.
Mr. Speaker, the lead consultant, principal officers and other colleagues, good afternoon. Sir, Prof, mine is just an addition or observation, because I can vividly remember I had meeting with you sometimes back in Maiduguri pertaining youth issues and civil society, and still today we are here in the same issue. So I'm coming from Borno State and I represent the youths of Borno Central, but I want you as the lead consultant to consider this crisis that we have in the northeastern region, particularly when it comes to development partners, employment, rate of employment. Most of our youths are bitterly complaining that you can see the international organizations or donor agencies that are there, about 90% of their employment is not local, one. And two, you hardly see a lot of youths, particularly even drivers that you see. You find a driver, somebody coming from somewhere, somehow, that doesn't even know the terrain, and looking at the volatile nature of the terrain. So I urge you, if you can actually capture this, since I have seen the issue of IDPs, employment, empowerment, and so many issues like that, please, about 90% of the employment should be considered local. And then most of them should be youth. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you.
Honorable Homewood Darlington. And please always introduce yourselves. This goes to all members that will contribute. Always introduce yourself before your comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. the professor in the house. My name is Honorable Darlington Onwe Peters. I represent the youth constituency of Ebonyi Central Senatorial District. On the issue at hand regarding the National Youth Policy Review, I am going to make my voice so bold because this is more or less an intergenerational breakthrough that we want to make. A lot have been said, particularly on the age qualification, so I am not going to dwell on that. But I will start from page 27, the policy contents and guiding principles. And then we'll flip over to 28, Division 2020, which sets the goal of Nigeria becoming one of the top 20 economies in the world. Sir, a good number of Nigerian youths don't even know the contents of this Vision 2020. And so, in coming up with this set agenda or target, national target, it is very, very key to ensure that the youths are involved from the beginning. Now, we'll move over to page 47. Quickly to page 47. Item 5.26, where we have thematic focus 6, and then talking about political inclusion. Now, it's obvious that the Nigerian youth is one of the youth constituency all around the world that are not included when it comes to political participation. And I would want the National Youth Policy to come up with a compelling clause to our political parties to offer special waivers or sort of subsidy to Nigerian youth who are within the youth age when it comes to nomination form to contest election. You can imagine where the form to contest the office of the State Assembly might be 1.5 million or 2 million. Now, the annuity income of an average Nigerian youth may not even be up to 1 million per annum. And so that has given the Nigerian constituency a very serious disenfranchisement. And so there should be a clause in the policy which will compel the political parties operating in the country to give special waivers, as it is in the case of women where their tax is not an issue. So that's about that. And then there is a clause under that same thematic, that political inclusion, where it reads that the inadequate knowledge and experience and lack of institutional support. No, an average Nigerian youth is loaded with leadership capital. And so it shouldn't even be captured here. It shouldn't even be a factor here. But when we talk about institutional support, we talk about creating space for young people. And so that particular phrase, I am not too comfortable with that. And quickly, let's go to page 18. That page 18 where there was a special space for the physically challenged. No man is disabled. No man is disabled. So that phrase there, disability and special need, no, it should be physically challenged and special needs. So the phrase there, it's not in terms with the global convention.
Yes.
And then quickly, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, I want to plead that you exercise a little patience so that I will drive. Okay, now page 48. the objectives still on that, our objectives, talking about how to foster an enabling environment for youth engagement with political process at all levels. Sir, there's a lot that should be done here. And in my own opinion, I am submitting that the national youth policy should provide a comprehensive background for political parties to create a full-fledged youth arm of the party. This full-fledged arm of the party will have all the position that is obtainable at the mainstream of the party. And then the youth will have the opportunity of representing the chairman of the party, the secretary of the party, and every principal officers of the parliament. And then there will be this particular youth arm.
Please round up.
This particular youth arm of the parliament will be serving as a feeder to the main stream. Because of one of time, Mr. Speaker, as it has to do with the composition of the NYPC, that's page 54.
Please take note of time.
Okay, sir. Page 54. The National Youth Development Council, which has the composition of Mr. President, the and other ministers from affiliate ministries, and then here there is a representative of the National of the Youth Council of Nigeria, but there is no representative of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, and so it should be included.
Distinguished.
And
you
at
have
this
30
point,
seconds, please.
At this point,
Chief Whip,
knowing
please
that
take
the
note of
national
this.
youth policy is a structural framework that will inspire and drive a sustainable development and sustainable participation of the youth constituency in the country, I urge the steering committee, the consultancy, and the ministry to ensure that every details that will be included in the policy will be to the best interest of the average Nigerian youth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues.
Thank you.
Order. Please, honorable colleagues.
Ask a question, not speak. You have only 1 minute, please. If you will speak more than a minute, I will stop you.
Yes. Thank you, the Chief Whip. Honorable Ati Moses.
Hello.
1 minute.
Good day, Mr. Speaker, principal office holders, and my distinguished parliamentarian. Well, going to the draft of the National Youth Policy, page 46, Objective 12, that talked about civic engagement. I want to quickly talk on brain stagnation of our prison inmates in Nigeria. Because I believe that in developed democracy, the inmates in developed democracy, they are taken to agricultural sites and construction sites so that they will be properly monitored by the military so that they can carry out agricultural activities for the state or for the nation at large. Then secondly, the inclusion of the physically challenged person in politics. Going by the paradigm that is being set by the Bayelsa State Governor, Honorable Henry Seraki Dixon, he has set up a committee of physically challenged persons so that there can be this close relationship between the physically challenged and the government of the day. Then thirdly, I want to talk on the inclusion of physically challenged in the Nigerian military system and paramilitary. I believe very well that even in the military, the physically challenged, they can act effectively based on specific rules that will be given to them, not necessarily carrying arms or going to war. Lest I forget to introduce myself, I remain my humble self, Honorable RTJ Moses, the South South Caucus Secretary and the essay to the Bayelsa State Governor on Student Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Sanusi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. My name is Honorable Sanusi Akubu, representing Sokoto East Senatorial District, and the Chairman Ethics. Prof, I have taken time to look at the document you have worked on. It is very commendable. You have put so much effort in that. And that you will agree with me that in most cases, it is not actually the policy itself, but the implementation. I think basically that is where the gap is. Because even looking back at the previous policy document, youth policy document, there are so many aspects of it that if implemented could have gone so much so far as helping to reduce so many problems associated with youth in Nigeria. Having said that, I particularly want to appeal to you. I have observed that you have a monitoring and evaluation system as part of the document. This should be given serious emphasis because basically, as we know that apart from the policy, identifying the problems first before formulating policies, and of course the implementation, the key, most important part is this monitoring and evaluation, because without that, you can't be able to know and understand what impact is this policy making. I also want to make an appeal on behalf of the millions of youths in Nigeria that are physically challenged. I know the challenges that these people are facing because I am close to one of them, very close to one of the physically challenged persons whom I know very closely and whom I know is intellectually capable and has the ability to do a lot of things that I could not even do. So I agree with my honorable colleague that that press about disability should be changed to physically challenged persons, and that place you should look into the possibility of advocating for the establishment of physically challenged persons commission, because these people really need our help. They need our support, and they need all the help they can get to make sure that they are mainstreamed into governance as well as decision making of this country. And with that kind of commissions, physical challenged persons commission, I believe that they will have a lot of voice and make so much input in how they should be helped, to achieve their own potentials. Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable. Please, do we have any sergeant at arms around? Okay, thank you. Please, could you please give the professor a chair, please, so that he can be comfortable. Honorable David Fadoju.
Permit me to ride on the existing protocol. I remain my humble self, Honorable David Fadoju, from Lagos West Constituency. I have about 4 questions here. I will just highlight them because of our time. Number one, sir, riding through the policy, I discovered there is nothing talking about environment. If you are putting together things for the youth and our environment is not being considered, I want to believe that's a loophole. Also, I want to suggest about marital life. Marital life, I discovered that most of the young people, according to your statistics, we have good numbers of young ones that are going to marriage at the age of 20 to 29. And you will discover that most of them are not so that trained for that particular that lifestyle. They just want to get married and they don't train their children. And with that, we have a lot of what to say outside. I don't want to use some negative language there. And two, sir, I want to talk about the quota marks. The quota marks, when like the JAMS quota marks and other quota marks like that. So I want to round up by saying that what happens to the youth between the ages of 29 to 35, if you have to peg the definition of youth to 29 to 29, what will happen to those that goes above that 29 to 35? What, in quote,
Chief Whip.
what in court can be their guideline. Like one of my colleagues was saying, that if we want to go for a contest in an election, that there should be a provision for the youth age. Youth age. I want to be so specific about that youth age. If we're talking about youth age and we're talking about...
Excuse me, please. You have made your point clear. Don't stop the explanation. You will do it, please.
We'll see later. Thank you very much.
Please put off your mic. Thank you very much. Yeah, Honorable Obande Gideon.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, dear colleagues, I may not know, maybe it's because of the direction of sitting. The Republicans may be seen as conservatives, but we want you to also look more towards our direction so that you can have input from our own ideological line of thought, as we believe it will help the House. Am I speaking your minds, please? Mr. Speaker, permit me to ride on by saying that my amiable prof, sir, you did a powerful job on your presentation, but I will just pick nuggets to help you because I know many more people will be talking. One of it, which is prime on my list, is the 6th slide. Please, decorum, please. The 6th slide, where you talked about the different organs and commissions and the youth council. I was surprised that the youth parliament, that you were hinging the responsibility of making sure that this great document sees the daylight and is adjusted to suit the Nigerian youth, was not captured on that list. The Nigerian Youth Parliament was not captured, and I will crave the indulgence of my colleagues and put it to you, sir, that the Nigerian Youth Parliament has contributed her quota in youth development within these 8 years prominently and should be captured among one of those structures that should be seen at the implementation front of the youth policy. I also want to say that your presentation was robust as it involves constituting a board of trustee. But it was, however, silent about one, the tenure system of the board of trustee, because these are some of the issues that had given birth to the current constraints we had in the parliament. And it also did not talk seriously about the formation and composition age-wise of those that will form the board of trustee. Who should be permanent members and how the nomination of the other members will come. I think it's also important that that is taken into consideration. I also want to make a reference to the issue of
leader.
A lot of people have touched on it. Yes,
the
sir.
time is off, please.
The chief whip, sir, with due respect, I will sit down at this point, but may I just say, sir, for one more minute, that the issues that border on age, sir, I will suggest and go along with other of my colleagues that the limit upper peg should remain on 35. If you decide to drop down the lower peg to accommodate the current realities, then it will be good to go. My chief will thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, gender. Honorable Rabi Hassan.
Honorable Speaker, the clerk, the prof, my colleagues, my name is Rabi Hassan Aliu, representing KB South. My question is based on the age, sir. You talk about 18 to 29, right? 15 to 29. Sir, some of our colleagues will graduate from the university at the age of 22. You will be 32 without a job, without getting employed. And those that are employed are under, no, I don't think if you got any job, that's a good job, at the age of 18 to 32, you will be pressurized or you will have anything disturbing you. As they said, if a woman is married before the age of 29, she will become an adult. Very true. If you got a good job and you get married, that's for the males. At the age of 29, you are an adult. What about those that are not married and without a job at the age of 29 or 30? Who are they, sir? I don't think it's worth it. You are a parliament member. After 2 years, you are no more a parliament member and you don't have a job. I don't think you deserve something there.
All right, thank you,
very much.
Moses Ingwe. Honorable. Okay, please, from the gender. No, let us patronize the minority before we now move to. We have final 2 questions. Honorable Kabiru Zubairu Sheme.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, the prop, sir, other distinguished parliamentarians. Sir, my questions go this way, sir. Looking at producing these documents on youth in Nigeria, sir, I have gone through these documents. So let me recommend first the history of Nigerian development, Nigerian youth development. The history will never forget your name. Looking at how you have done this work, the time you spent, and also the resources you have put into. Sir, I look on the issue of social media in Nigeria, but you have not touched that.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
What order? The Chief Whip, sir.
Mr. Speaker, as the Chief Whip of this Honorable House.
What order? You have to cite the order, sir.
You don't put
While you look for the order, Honorable Kabiru, still go on.
Okay, sir, what I'm saying, sir, if you are producing a document about Nigerian youths, you neglect the issue of social media, its advantage and disadvantage. Definitely some important point was missed. I rest my case. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. The last one, Honorable Hafiza Mohammed. Could you please get a functioning mic close to you?
Okay, the issue of environment needs to be really emphasized because we need people to be educated within the youth to maintain our forest and our trees so that we can have a better environment. And then the issue of education. I think that's one of the most important key issue. If people are actually young people are not educated, not in terms of school, like basic school, but there are other things that we need to be educated, the environment mostly, and it will help in ensuring peace, and then we'll be responsible. Like there are other things that we need to engage people in as well, like the traditional rulers, so that they can at least put in together with how to accommodate young people in terms of trying to improve on our still environment. So I think when people are actually responsible for something, they actually try to put more effort in maintaining it. And then the second thing is, how is this your proposal going to be deliberated only here? I think the more younger ones need to be engaged as well from the universities, probably the law department or other departments in the universities. I think we need to hear a view from Nigerians that are not included in this kind of discussions. I think we'll have a better understanding of what really youths want. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Honorable. The Prof, sir. I think all other questions, like we agreed yesterday, is we'll go down to the committee levels, the zonal levels, and down to the caucus leaders, to the principal. So we're still going to have a robust debate outside this. So for the questions, please.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, I think also at the end of the day, maybe when you get into those discussions you're talking about, if you can also do a compilation.
Hello, sorry to interrupt you. The majority leader, please put off your mic. And please, can we please suspend this so that we can have attention? Please, can we please suspend? Hello? Hello? Could you please suspend this till we finish this session, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just saying that by the time you're done with the other sessions and your inputs, I'll be glad to have a compilation of some of your inputs, and I would ensure that those inputs are immediately effected in the draft. It's still a draft, and so we're still working on it as much as possible. I want to thank you for the questions. The questions, I am glad that I am getting this kind of feedback. That means that we're taking this very seriously. It also shows that you've been able to follow in the presentation, and that some of you have done a good job reading through the document. I think that, for me, is a plus, and I'm glad that I am having this level of feedback from you. The document is yours, and your input is number one. Your input is priority in all that we do. So I thank you very much. Let me just quickly run through the gentleman who was talking about mental health. One of the thematic areas, one of the strategic trust is health and healthy lifestyle for youth. And if you look at the situation analysis, we did a lot about mental health. Mental health is a big issue, and unfortunately, not many are taking it the way it should be taken. And because of the pressure of growing up, the pressure of contending with the times and the situation, the serious unemployment situation that we have, the financial situation, all of this create mental health issue. In fact, all of us in one way or the other suffer from one mental issue or the other. It's just that it's on a continuum. Some people are farther on the extreme end, while others are on this other end. But I think it's a very important issue. We looked at it, but I'm going to check it again. If there's anything we need to beef up on that, there's a whole section on that. And we'll look at it and ensure that that is properly captured. My friend from Maiduguri, Malam Dogo, is it? Yes. Yeah, thank you very much for your points. I appreciate the issues. We were able to capture the issue of the IDPs significantly, and the young people, and how to deal with all of that. But the other issue that you raised about making sure that young people in that locality are given space, allowed to come in, especially when it comes to employment and so on and so forth. All of that we're going to throw up. One other important point that I need to make, that the policy, the youth policy, is usually in two parts. What you have with you now is the first leg. The second leg is the implementation strategy and action plan. Now, the action plan is a lot more detailed. That's where you have those who are responsible, the indicators, and all the we cannot put everything in the policy, otherwise it becomes a document that is unwieldy. Policy documents, youth policy document, or any policy at that is not supposed to be that unwieldy. But what then happens is the implementation strategy and the action plan is what follows the document. And I am hopeful that the ministry will hasten and make sure that the action plan, the implementation strategy and action plan, is also that consultants are brought on board and that is done on time. Because you can't have a policy without an implementation strategy and action plan. The action plan will even include things like timeline, it will include things like cost, it will include things like indicators and those who are responsible for particular things. So I think that some of the details that you have mentioned that are not here will be in the implementation strategy and action plan. The gentleman who was talking about Vision 2020, what we did was trying to make use of all the policies, all the documents that are available that are related to youth development. And Vision 2020 is one document that we used. And I was privileged to serve on that committee, those who put up that Vision 2020. And I worked on the youth, thematic area on the youth in that document. So we also took a lot from that document and brought it into this. I think the document is available with national planning and it should be online. I don't know but the relevant agencies should make that document available. So for the young people who have not seen the document, I have a copy of the Vision 2020, maybe because I was part of the people who developed the Vision 2020, but I think the document should be available. The issues you raise about physical disability, I'm sorry about that. We actually agreed that there's ability in disability, so you don't use the word disability, rather the word physically challenged is the more appropriate word. That will be corrected. I don't know why it's still there in the document, because we actually noted that and said that that should be corrected. But I would make sure that we take that and correct that. You also talked about putting a clause that will compel political parties about making sure that young people give them a quota or make some concession for them. Now, these are also some of the things that will come up in the implementation strategy and action plan. These are specific things that needed to be done. And some of these things would need to be legislated, because some of these things, because before you can compel anybody, there must be a law. And that law, we'll have to raise a bill and take it to the House, and it will be passed into the law. So again, this is some of the things that the Youth Parliament will do. And we have the House, both houses have their representative in the youth policy. So we hope that such statements will be promulgated into law so that we can enforce it. So all of that, we have noted it, and they are already in the policy, but again, we'll see how to increase the use. You talked about the youth arm. Okay, youth arm in political parties. Again, that's something that will come up in implementation strategy, something that we can also promulgate into law. Aspects of the policy would have to be made into law so that we can enforce them. So we have to tease out those aspects and then pass it to the relevant bodies to prepare a bill that we can take through to the House. So all of that we're going to be looking at. The presentation, I think I need to apologize. In the document, you would find that the Youth Parliament is there as a major player in the document. But sometimes when you do PowerPoint, you don't put everything in the PowerPoint. But actually, Youth Parliament should be in this PowerPoint presentation today. I sincerely apologize for that. It's a little oversight there. But in the document, if you have a copy of the document, you see very clearly. And if you think there's anything I need to do to beef that up, please pass it on and let us include it so that we can acknowledge the role that the Youth Parliament has played. I think you have done a lot, and we have to recognize that as much as possible. Then somebody was talking about civic engagement. Again, the inclusion of physically challenged in political participation. I will look at that to see if we can add a clause on that. Not just youth inclusion now, but youth inclusion of all categories of youth, whether physically challenged or not. I think we can do that. Inclusion of the physical challenge in the military and in political process. These are some details that the policy cannot contain all of these details, but we can give broad guidelines. But in the document that will follow, a little bit of details will be there. Policy implementation, I agree with the Honorable that talked about the importance of implementation. We hope that the action plan will help. Once the action plan is taken, because each of those trusts will be taken one by one, and the responsible officers, the indicators, performance indicators will be included, timeline will be given so that we can actually monitor the implementation of this document. So I think the M&E is very important, and we will continue to strengthen that. Environment, I thought we had a whole trust on environment. Please, you need to look at that document again. One or two honorable people said something about including environment. I think we have environment properly captured in this document, but I will look at it, and if there's anything we need to bring up, especially in the action plan, we'll bring them up. Somebody talked about marital life. I think, again, we try to bring that in, but the details of that also will come in the implementation. I'll talk about the issue of age last. I want to bring that as the last thing I'll talk about. The slide on youth parliament, I have apologized about that. Tenure of the BOT. I thought we said something about tenure, but I will check it and see if there are no tenure. We will make sure that the tenure is also inserted. And then the issue of age and age came up again. We talked about social media. If you look at the document very well, there's no way you can do a document like this without talking about social media. But the role of the social media will be more prominent when we begin to work on the action plan, the implementation strategy, and the action plan. That is very important. Again, environment, somebody has mentioned environment again, education and training, all of that we captured very well. If you look at the document, we went beyond formal education and we looked at training, different forms of training that young people will need. Yeah, finally, the issue of age. What we have done here is merely a proposal. We have only made a suggestion. The decision about the age lies in your purview. It's what you say that will be there. It's not what we, the consultants, say that will be there in the final analysis. And I've taken note of all that you said. The reason we did that is based on data and figures that we have, and also best practices. And we looked at the issues as consultants. Maybe we were a lot more academic than we should, and we thought, oh, let's throw it up and get feedback from you. And so what we have done is throw that age bracket up. It is not cast in iron. It is not final yet. The document is still a draft. It has not been, the final document has not been taken. So your inputs have been taken, and we will probably look at the document again. The ministry also have made their position known that they think that 35 as the upper limit is what they would prefer. And again, I have listened to you. A lot of the comments have come from our stakeholders meeting, and what you want is what is going to be there. So I can assure you that maybe we'll bring it down to 15 because there are real issues at that level. We can take, it was 18 to 35 before, but we can take it from 15 to 35. But I can assure you that what your decision is going to be final. What you say is what will be in the policy, not what the consultants say. Thank you very much. Are there issues about 15? Yes, yes. We can stay with 18. We can stay with 18. But again, a lot more young people, most people...
Sorry to interrupt you. Call members, please come back. We'll be having a short session for you soon. I would like you to be there. Just some few minutes. Please return to your seat. Thank you.
If you look at the statistics, most people get into the university today at age 15. We find a lot of young people, start school early, they finish school early, and a lot of these young people are mature and they have become youths one way or the other. And you'll be shocked the age 15 that enter into the university. We even have age 14 now coming into the university because people start primary school as early as 3 even, and 4. And so these are issues, and we thought maybe we could capture that transition and see if there's anything we can do about that. But no problem, we can stay with 18. There's a child policy that captures from anything below 18 in the child policy. So if we stay with 18, but I also know that there's a lot of argument for 15 down to 35. So I just want to assure you that the age issue is not a problem. Your concerns will be taken care of and the issues will be reflected accordingly. Yeah, thank you very much for your inputs. And please, let's have a compilation of the issues again. So forward them to me, soft copy of the issues, so that I have also taken note here now, and I'm going to get across to UNFPA and the ministry so that we put this in the drafts as much as possible. And I would await your further inputs so that we can have them all put together. The age issue will be taken care of, and there is no need to worry about that. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Amen. Yeah, thank you so much, Daddy. You have been of tremendous benefit, not only to the youth of Nigeria, but to the nation at large. As we want to commend you, and we want to say don't get tired, because we know this could be frustrating. And I think today is very productive because we've been looking for a way to find the minister to sit down and hear about the bill. And at least we achieved that success today. And I think all kudos to you, because you had something doing today. You have to share it, and within your tight schedule, we know you're leaving in the next few hours by 4. Your flight has to go. So we want to appreciate you on behalf of our distinguished colleagues. We want to say thank you. And before you go, please have your seat, Daddy. You have done a wonderful job for this generation, despite the fact that you are not in our generation. And I think you deserve a standing ovation. So please, distinguished parliamentarians, for Daddy, I think he deserves a standing ovation. Yes, we may have your seat. Thank you very much. So as you travel back to Ilorin, I wish you safe flight, and the SLA will liaise with you on how to see that you get to the airport. Thank you very much, Daddy. We are most grateful. Yes, so the majority leader, we are rounding up for today.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, before we move for adjournment, may I humbly seek your permission to invite the president of the CDS group to come forward for 2-minute presentation. 2-minute presentation. I call on the minority leader to second the motion. Thank you.
All right, the deputy minority leader.
Okay, on behalf of the minority leader and my colleagues, I support the motion. Thank you.
If you are in support that we give the president of the core member CDS group that is here present, please, a chance to address us. Please say hi. And if you are against, say no. The ayes have it. Mr. President, would you please approach the podium? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I am Dauke Alfred, CDS President, Sanitation Group, NYSC. I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues to observe the sitting. We are impressed that the Parliament have been effectively representing young Nigerians and encouraging the Nigerian youth to do more. I want to use the opportunity to thank the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, and the Director General of NYSC, in person of Brigadier General SZ Kazauri, for prioritizing the scheme. And I wish that the Parliament will advocate for more on the welfare of youth corps members in Nigeria. Thank you in anticipation for a response. God bless Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate those words, and be rest assured that it is our duty to stand for the Nigerian youth, and we want to tell you too that it is a collective responsibility. We would like you to join hands with us, particularly young minds of the Nigerian Youth Parliament. You're free to liaise with your youth senators, as in they are going to provide guidance, and henceforth you can go to our website, www.nigerianyouthparliament.org. As in, if you're interested in becoming a member, you see what to do, then from there you can register. This time around, I think the next nomination will not be the usual process. I think it's going to be through the social media. You're going to register and apply via our website. So thank you very much for that. And I look forward, let's say the Parliament look forward to the creation of an NYP CDS, NYSC CDS. It is important because this will further drive down the goals of the NYP to our core members. So I think we can work hand in hand to achieve that. Please, after the session, maybe you can have a talk with the clerk and the majority leader. So thank you very much for coming. The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I move that the Parliament adjourn sitting till tomorrow at 9 a.m. I call on the minority leader to second motion. Thank you.
You are not audible, sir. Is it that we are hungry? Okay, please. We couldn't hear what you said. Come again. You are not audible. So,
I move that the Parliament adjourn sitting till tomorrow by 9 a.m. And I call on the minority leader to second the motion. Like, fast.
yes, sir. and in the absence of the minority leader, we have the deputy minority leader.
On behalf of the minority leader and my colleagues, I support the motion. Thank you.
Yeah, distinguished parliamentarians, we had a fruitful day. This is a very great start, and let me appreciate everybody.
Just go outside now.
Yes, we want to appreciate you for making this happen. We have 3 more days of serious deliberation. Please, decorum, we are not done yet. We have 3 more days of serious deliberation. And when we go back to the hotels, we fall into our caucuses so that we can start process for tomorrow's proceedings. And immediately after this, we should proceed to room 104, conference room 104 107 for the refreshment. So if you are in support that we adjourn till 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, please say hi. Hi. If you are not in support, say no. Okay. Okay, if you are in support, say hi. If you are not in support, say no. The ayes have it. Could you please hold on, have your seats, parliamentarians?